Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
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 Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. How are you?
All right. Looks like we have most people joining. I'm sure people will kind of hop on as we go. As we get started, we can skip over Zoom logistics. I think if we don't have it figured out by now, we might be in trouble. In terms of kind of a general overview for what we wanted to do today, we're going to start with some progress reports. So we'll hear from 4 of the programs about how their PDSAs are coming. We'll take a look at some of their data. And then we're going to transition to briefly talking about the final presentations that we'll do for the PDSAs at the January learning session. So David will walk us through that and kind of talk about generally what's going to be expected. I know most of you have done this before, but we have a few new programs and things kind of change a little bit each year. So we just want to make sure everybody's ready for that and can start preparing as we head into the holiday season. And then I'm going to give a quick presentation, nothing formal at all, but just kind of talking through navigating parenting during COVID. I figure it might be helpful now that we're really deeply embedded into the pandemic and things keep changing. I talked to a lot of the programs over the last month and it sounds like, you know, the target keeps shifting in terms of whether parents are working from home or they're working out in the community, whether kids are at home or at school. And so given that things just keep constantly shifting and there's a lot of uncertainty, I just wanted to kind of point out some resources, some information that may be helpful to think about as you're working with the families. And also as you yourselves are kind of battling some of these issues as parents and workers yourselves. And then talk about really briefly a study that David and I are thinking of getting together in the probably next 6 months, but related to kind of parenting and technology and kind of what we can do to help support families, especially kind of in the moment. So that's what we'll be doing today. Let me kind of run through, make sure we got people. Looks like we have pretty much everybody who is going to be sharing today. I think. Let me just check. Okay. So the first program that we have for the progress reports is PCCT PAT. So, sorry, it's taking forever to scroll through all the different people, but people ready to present on that and go through kind of a quick overview? I think you're muted. Let's see, don't hear anybody. Muting's still on. Here, we'll shift down one to Safe Care Tulsa, and then we'll go back to PAT.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing, Sherry?
I am okay. I don't think I knew I was presenting today. So I don't have any materials ready.
You don't, no materials really needed, Sherry. Essentially, we just wanted to talk through how it's going. So you don't need to show us anything.
Oh, okay, good, because I'm like, I don't know.
Really trying to get a sense of just how it's going. I know we did our rounding call, not this month, but last month.
Right.
So just kind of the conversation we were having around how how the PDSA is going. I know it's been challenging. You've had a lot of
Okay.
changes in your program. So if you want to just kind of speak to some of that, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah, we've had some challenges. Oh gosh, where do I start with all the different challenges? Okay, so we've had some challenges just with our program in general, getting our parents to continue to meet with us. I don't know if some of it's Zoom fatigue. Some of our parents meet with Zoom. Some of them do telephone calls still for technology reasons. Sometimes our kiddos are home with our families. Sometimes they're not. TPS has recently let the younger children go back face to face in school, and I think that started last week. So it's just kind of a hodgepodge of different circumstances every day. As you mentioned earlier, it constantly changes. So with our challenges of meeting, we've continued to meet our families where they are at, help them with the necessary referrals that they need to have just to keep life moving. And if we have the opportunity, we try to get our lessons in because that's why we are there. And so for a while, we were not getting to the fatherhood piece for our CQI. So we talked about this recently at one of our team meetings and came up with a plan that each worker will text their parents 1 day a week and ask them how it is going. They will do this separately from their visits so that we can focus on this initiative. And so far that's working pretty well. They're getting some responses back, but not only that, they're actually continuing to reach out to their parents, which is good, what we want.
Wonderful.
Kind of where we are at. I know that I got some dashboards yesterday, I believe, maybe the day before, I'm not real sure. And so I looked at those and it appears to me, which could be wrong, that there has been some improvement.
And I know that you have had some changes to your own plans. I don't know if you had to.
Oh, okay. Well, we have lost one of our workers, one of our MIECHV workers left for a career change. So we've got that slot open and we are in the process of interviewing for that replacement. But I'm also trying to retire, which is kind of in the middle of all of this. And I'm just had some personnel changes that I hadn't counted on. When I was making my plans. So I'm still here. Probably will be in January too.
Yeah, I know it's been a moving target for you as well with the retirement and all of that. But we appreciate all of your support with the PDSA as you try to tackle all of that.
Well, I appreciate your all's support too. That's nice.
I know that you received the dashboard from Amy. Geneva's been also helping put that together. Geneva or Amy, could one of you pull up and we'll just take a look at the progress? Maybe. Let's see. Yeah, you're both on.
Whichever one of us gets to it first. I'm I'm looking for
Here,
that.
I'll stop sharing, Geneva, if you want to pull it up.
Okay. The program number 765.
That sounds about right. Like 65 and 63.
Yeah, 765.
All right, we got your headline graph. I made some adjustments to this on a different one that I haven't carried over to yours. So this is by month, the score by month. When we revise this, will be the scores by the first versus the second time that the clients were asked this.
Okay.
So hopefully we'll see that maybe this goes up instead of down.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
We've got your weekly counts. Looks like we've got individual items for the engagement scales, count of distributed activities. I think you mentioned on the call that you guys were having trouble getting some of these activities and things distributed, possibly.
Really remember that. I mean, they shouldn't have a problem.
I might be getting calls.
Looks like it's just for the MIECHV people, and we're doing it with our private also.
I believe that I do have your private in there. I can double check. I didn't label it on here, but
That's okay.
I believe that it should be pulled in. What number did you say was the private one?
I think it's 763, maybe.
Okay, I have 848.
So
So
okay,
maybe that.
I'll go with that.
Well, I could have that wrong. So we can verify this at our next meeting. This is the number of activities completed, the average number of activities completed in a week. And there's your father figure in the child's life versus father figures available to receive services. Anything that I just think he's popping up. I don't know if you guys can see that. Do you have any questions or anything that you'd like to point out?
No, hopefully we'll see these numbers increase. With the holidays, that also will be interesting because I've got a lot of staff out. I know that I've got quite a few out this, well, right now, and then I know next week, I don't think there'll be anybody actually really in our department. So that may be a pretty good disruptor, but hopefully we'll be able to ramp it up between the end of November and before we go on holiday break in December.
Sounds good.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you so much, Sherry.
Uh-huh.
And next we'll go over to OKCPS PAT. So Yolanda, you able to join? I know some people are having audio difficulties.
Yeah, let me go ahead and unmute myself. I'm so sorry.
No, how are you?
Sometimes, good. I don't know why when I have like two screens going on, the mouse goes everywhere. So it is okay for me to share the screen if you wanted to have some.
Yeah, do you have the figures that Chris sent you, or do you want
Yes,
him to?
matter of fact, he sent me something new this morning, so I added to. So let me see if I can do this.
All right.
Okay. Can you see them?
Yes, we can.
So, well, our project was trying to get a number of visits completed. I think in the month of April, May, and June, our visits went down. Different reasons, especially the pandemic. Funny thing is because I think the first week when we start doing virtual or telephone calls, the families were very glad that we can continue providing the services, but it has been like up and down. But anyway, so we were trying to get our visits completion at 85%, which it was like pretty much about a 35% increase. And we knew that was going to be very difficult, but we'll try to raise high. And so one of the things that we were trying to do, of course, is checking with families and see in what way we can meet, if that was virtual or telephone calls. We were not allowed to do any face-to-face visits. And but we also were trying to, if the families complete a visit with no cancellation, maybe give it some kind of incentive. And that was materials like books or crayons, construction paper. So that was part of the incentive. And we also, once we could go back to the office, because for the longest time our office were closed and we were not able to get in. But once we were able to get into the office, the educators were making folders to families, because after 3 months or 4 months being trying to play with the whatever the families have in the home, and we didn't want the families have to purchase anything. So we are doing like creating folders monthly with 2-3 activities for the parents to complete. And that seems like it's working. We send handouts with the activity that we're gonna do it. We send information about resources in the community, and I mean, you name it. We have, of course, the paperwork, and we also leave whatever is going to be with activity, we leave the materials, mostly are perishable materials. So we also were trying to recruit new families, and we were very glad that we're going to be in a new office with a pre-K in the first floor in the school that we are now. But everything went back and they canceled school. So that was one of the enrollment recruitment that we were facing, the challenges that we were facing. And still any type to recruitment that we can do is going to be a drive-through or leave flyers, because again, we cannot recruit the way that we used to do it. So we part of the project, it was new families. We were sending a welcome to the program card, and also when they complete visits, I think we said about 12 visits, we send a thank you card, and again, some kind of incentive. So I'm gonna step these. And apparently it's working. We are now in the 85% like we wanted to. And we were like very, our highs were very, our hope was very high. And of course, in October, on top of the COVID, now we have the ice storm and families without electricity. Matter of fact, we were closed, I think, for 4 days. And after that, we were back working from home because we didn't have electricity in our building. So it's like, okay, come on, 2020. So those are the last numbers that Chris sent it to me. And again, we are not in the 85%, but we are in the 62%, which I mean, I think it has been like 12% increase. So we were very happy about this. He compared, Chris sent me this compared with last year, and we have more visits than last year, but of course last year we have a different situation because we have new parent educators, and I think for 2 months, our staff was maybe only with 5 parent educators for some time. So he also sent these, which it is the continuation, and I don't know if they copy good, but oh, here it is, sorry. Compared with 2019 and 2020, the continuations with the visit, that mean that the families can keep visits. The visits that were scheduled, they keep, I think, I don't know, he's collected, I don't remember the number, he can say something, but we are getting consecutive visits completed. Yeah, I think that's what I was trying to say. And again, apparently more families are having more consecutive visits. And I think for the last reasons for cancellation, and of course, you know, the COVID-19, and in here we have the data that we have collected is the families, they don't want to do visits because they prefer face-to-face. So during I would say more the COVID-19 is no wanted to do virtual or telephone call visits. And I think we lost about maybe 25 families for that reason. So, and again, different reasons for cancellation. A note of that is I noticed that some of the cancellations, they're not recorded. I mean, cause of the cancellation or reason for cancellation. So that's something that I want to talk to the parent educators to see, because we have a drop off a box with the cancellations reasons. And again, it's not the way that we want it, but I mean, it can be worse, I think.
I think it's very impressive, especially in light of all the challenges. How have things been? I know this week was a scramble. It sounds like from going back in person for a short period of time, now back to virtual. How's that going with the families?
Well, one of the things that we are working again, now school is completely virtual. So, and we have to go back. Matter of fact, we have less people now in the office. So we are, I'm here twice a week, and educators, nobody can be in more than one person in the office. So, and we have leave that for them to, if they have to get materials. But I mean, we're working from home pretty much until, I think until the end of the day, the end of the year. But again, we have some time to come to the office and get especially the materials or whatever we need for families. I guess at the end of November, when I run the reports, I'm going to see how is going to be this month. We're facing holidays, and it's always, you know, family trouble. I don't know how it's going to be, but family go to different places, or they feel so stressed that they don't want to do visits. I know, and the other group have mentioned some of our families, they're tired of be using Zoom, especially they have children's school age, and they only have maybe one computer. Or so I know it has been an issue.
Well, I mean, you're doing a fantastic job, especially in light of all of that, especially when you look at this graph right here and showing the high numbers of visits that some of the families are achieving. That's really impressive, even relative to last year, when in some ways there were not as many challenges.
Well, again, we were not expecting, you know, that we have that we went completely virtual, or, you know, the ice storm, or no electricity. And for some reason, this part of where we're located, they have families that we have families with no electricity for more than 7 days. So,
Wow.
well, I don't know if Chris want to add something, if I didn't explain very well the graphs, but I told that's not my forte. But anyway,
I think you did very well.
thank you. Well, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
All right. Thank you so much, Yolanda.
You're welcome.
Our next program is PAT Parent Promise. Sean, I think you're on. Hi.
Hi. So I didn't pull up my PDSA or anything.
That's okay. We can keep it informal if you want to just talk through what you're doing, how's it going. That's fine.
Okay, so we're trying to increase our virtual home visits, and doing that by, so our program, we're fortunate enough to have like a store on site that our families earn baby bucks and can buy stuff. And we already incentivize completed home visits by giving them 3 baby bucks per visit. And then for this CQI project, we upped that to 5 baby bucks if they complete their visits virtually. So just incentivizing that aspect. So we have, I think our original aim was to increase by like 10%. And we started, so from March 17th, when we kind of got the call to shut everything down, through May 31st, we were at about 17% virtual visits.
Right.
And as of now, I think Andrew sent me this just at the end of last week or the beginning of this week.
I haven't sent you one for this week. I do have it up now if you'd like me to share my screen.
That'd be great. We'll
Thanks,
see.
Andrew.
Okay, it's the same.
Yep.
So we have upped it up to 61%. So we've gone way over our goal. And we're not getting, I think the struggle is just having people remember to enter why visits weren't completed virtually, or the reason why they're not. One thing we discussed is the internet didn't seem to be a huge issue on why visits weren't completed. We had, so I'm trying to think. In our touch point, our like excuses for not doing virtual visits would be no internet. Oh my gosh, I was just looking at it. Schedule conflict. Just don't want to do virtual visits. And then we have another option. I did ask our PEs what the other option was when they were entering that. And the ones that responded to me said the moms were driving. And so I think that's where I kind of failed to explain, because to me that would be like a scheduling conflict. We just didn't have that discussion on what all would be entailed with scheduling conflict. So there could be other reasons, like I said. So this week's been crazy at Parent Promise. We had some else test positive, so a lot of us are working remotely again, so the communication's kind of spotty. But that's that. Did I miss anything?
No, Andrew, is there anything from a data perspective you wanted to show?
Not particularly. She's pointed out the same things that we spoke about at our last meeting, that there was, for the reasons that a visit wasn't virtual, not having the internet didn't seem to be that big a deal. And client choice, just parents opting out of the of a virtual visit didn't get chosen very frequently. It was usually other that was getting clicked, and that was the main mystery, I think.
Jonna, does it seem like parents are using the baby bucks? Have they been cashing them in for goods?
Yes, we're actually, so after the Thanksgiving break, supervisor, we're gonna have to powwow our store. It's almost getting to the point where supply and demand is kind of overwhelming. So yes, people are utilizing that. I think one thing that's helped in the beginning of the pandemic, especially because we carry like toilet paper, cleaning supplies, paper towels, we cannot keep those in stock. So I feel like anytime I personally go to the store, I'm buying those items for our store at work as well. But that's what it's there for. We want the families to be able to get what they need and not have to stress about it. So now some clients, the baby bucks isn't really an incentive to them. They couldn't really care less. But for some clients, like I've heard if a PE has to cancel a visit, they're like, am I going to get my baby bucks? Like, how is this affecting me? So it really just depends on the client, what's going on in their lives and all of the above. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Andrew, for pulling that up. Okay, well, I think what we'll do now is switch over to talking a little bit about the final presentations and what's kind of expected and what we want to put together for those. David, are you available to go over some of that information?
Yes, happy to. Okay, hello everybody. So nothing has changed with the template from last go around, but I thought it would help for us to review it together. Let me share my screen. Can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay. As usual, we'd like a little bit of programming information. I've mentioned in the past that we like these to be sort of a one-stop shop for not only our program, but for others who sort of are looking at us from a distance. We just this week shared quite a bit of materials from past PDSAs with some of our partners who operate a learning collaborative for tribal MIECHV programs nationally. So this provides a little bit of historic context for everyone who views these summaries, not just our own local folks. So location, brief history, your model, your provider counts currently, and then roughly how many clients you see per month, per year. And then some PDSA specific information. So which key driver did you select? And Lisa, remind me, when we send these out, let's also send out the father engagement key drivers diagram, so everybody has a refresher when filling out this particular slide. They may not be numbered in the father engagement collaborative, so you could just write it out. Why you selected this intervention? And here you might not just want to explain, you know, obviously we've gently guided all of you into adopting a father engagement PDSA, although there were a few exceptions this go around. So here's why you could explain the exception. For those that did move forward with a father engagement PDSA, maybe why you chose to target on either that top branch of the key drivers diagram, where we're focused on getting dad more involved in home visiting directly or indirectly, or if you focused on the bottom branch, which is getting dad more involved in enhancing the relationships with the child or with the mom or both. Your start date for this current PDSA phase, and then your SMART aim. So a lot of that, most of it, I hope, is copy and paste from your PDSA documentation. You'll definitely want to review that PDSA document to make sure it's up to date. As always, we would love to have that updated PDSA in addition to your slides. We post both the PDSA and the final slides to our website, and usually when we refer others, like this week referring the tribal MIECHV folks to your materials, we just send them the link. A great way to know if we have on file your updated PDSA is to actually look at your project dashboards as they get distributed. I had pulled one up here earlier. I think this is actually from last round, but you should get the idea. There should be a documentation tab in everybody's dashboard, and there's a link to the PDSA. If this link is not active, it probably means we don't have a PDSA on file. If it is active, I should have tested this out. All right, we have one that's active. Please read this and let us know if this is up to date, and if not, either edit it here or send us your up-to-date version so we have the latest. Measures. This too, you ought to be able to copy and paste either from your PDSA document or from your dashboard. So if I go back, hopefully all dashboards look something like this, where we have our outcome in a definition. This one may be a little different than most because I'm not seeing a numerator and denominator, but notice for the process measures, we've got that listed out. Numerator, denominator for several process measures in this one. And then same thing happening for a handful of disruptors. most of you probably only have one outcome, one process, one disruptor. If you have the numerator and denominator, we'd love to see that definition here. Change theory diagrams. Here again, I bet what we have on file is not the latest. So if you would just update what you, your change theory diagram, your current thinking on why the intervention that you selected, the change idea that you selected will have an impact on your primary driver, and definitely include the process measure that we're tracking, you're tracking for purposes of your project, include your disruptor, and then any other process and disruptor measures that you thought of either at the beginning or along the way that clearly fall in this causal chain somewhere. You know, have some role to play in the relationship between the change idea that you're implementing and the intended outcome for your primary driver. Okay, more copy and paste, I hope. Plan. This is all should be listed in your PDSA documentation. The who will implement the change, the who is targeted with the change, the what, the where, the when. Rarely are these exactly what you envisioned when you first developed the PDSA, so I bet you'll want to edit this so that it's so that it's accurately reflecting the way that your change idea was implemented. Now, if you made changes to it along the way because of the outcomes that we were observing, that type of information actually belongs here in the do statement. In addition to the step-by-step processes that are in place to implement your change idea. So these are the nitty-gritty details, if you will, or the recipe, if you will, that others could follow after you to replicate what you've done for your program. Observations, if you've noticed important things along the way, this is a place to document that, a slide to document that. Those who've done this in the past know that this do slide is usually more than one slide. So you may want the step-by-step processes to be a slide and then your observations to be a follow-up slide. If you had any ramp up, you know, you started with just a handful of providers or a handful of clients, and then you scaled up to use it program wide, or maybe with all pregnant moms or non-pregnant moms, whatever the case may be. We'd like that documented under the do section as well. If that needs to be another slide, that's certainly fine. And then it's picture time, and we'd love to have the images from your dashboard show up here, at least one for an outcome, one for a process measure, and one for a disruptor. Your analyst and Helen and I are here to help cover this topic when we get there. I know sometimes it can be a little bit wonky, but it is a good idea to review your plots and make sure you have some basic understanding of what it's trying to tell you, what it's trying to tell us. And we will be setting up phone calls with each of you in preparation for the Learning Collaborative in January so that we can review those talking points together. Those calls are likely to happen early and mid-January. And right now, I believe we're targeting late January for that learning session. I see Helen nodding, so I think I got that right.
That's correct. We have not sent out a doodle poll about that. We're doing it separately, correct, for OKC and Tulsa like last time? So should we have 2 dates? Is that how we're planning it again?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I'll work with
Lisa. Since you'll be developing another PDSA on the back end, with 13 programs now, even with 2 of those sort of on hiatus due to their COVID responsibilities, that's a lot to tackle in one afternoon. So we'll split you up again, Oklahoma County and Tulsa County. And CREOCs and frontline staff will figure out where to place you. Likely we'll have you in 2 different spots just to make it a little more even.
David?
Yes.
I have a question real quick. So until what day what is the deadline to be collecting more information to complete this one?
Yeah, I skipped over that. Thank you. You're welcome to set a cutoff anytime in December you like. But we're fine if you wanted to wait for January even and run with the first dashboard you receive after the holidays. Every program operates a little bit differently around the holidays. So, if you're a program that doesn't provide a whole lot of visits or any visits between the Christmas and the New Year's holiday, it'd be fine with us if you set your cutoff for mid-December. If you are doing activities in that week, it'd be fine, as I said, to wait until you come back after New Year's and look at what happened for the complete month of December. The more the merrier. So certainly if you are doing activities and collecting data related to your project in that last week of December, we'd like you to include it.
Dr. Barr, this is Patty. For the questions on the collaborative and learning collaborative, will that be until the last one will be December?
For the questions,
Yeah.
this is specific to your project, Patty? Are you asking questions of your clients?
Well, it's in general that we have to ask all the clients. And
Oh, I'm sorry, the core measure. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we would like you to continue to do that. In fact, we'll review this at the learning session, but we're hoping to keep that measure alive for our final phase and continue collecting that for from January through June as we finish up the last phase of father engagement.
Oh, so for 2021, we'll continue answering those questions.
Yeah. And I'm going to steal Helen's thunder here. She's going to talk a little bit about the learning collaborative that's coming up next summer. I think we've advertised this before, so maybe as a reminder, we will change focus from father engagement and build PDSAs around child development monitoring and or promotion. And Helen's going to share with you before the call ends today a new idea that we are running with. We're referring to it as a pilot study to test out one method of enhancing the parent's ability to promote child development. So the core measure that you currently are tapping, we'll have a summary of that available at the January learning session. We may have some revisions to make, although we've been fairly pleased to date, certainly relative to what we experienced in the first phase. We're seeing more variability in that core measure. So we'll run with something very similar to that, if not virtually identical to what you currently have been administering with your clients. Okay. After you have presented the data, then we'll do a little bit of interpretation, kind of put all the pieces together here. What did we find out? So you'll have a study slide where you hit the high point of your outcome, your process, your disruptor. Did you hit your benchmark? A lot of the analysts will provide you with a statistical test to say, this is where you began, this is where you ended, this was a statistically significant difference. That type of detail we would like to see here in the study slide, and you'll need to lean pretty heavily on your analyst for that. And you may take an initial stab at it, for example, and send the slides to the analyst. They'll take a look at it, confirm or deny that that's what it means, and then back and forth until you guys agree on what it says. And this is a slide that we pay close attention to in those prep calls for those who haven't done that before. We'll speed through the first 10 here and then focus mainly on slides 11, 12, and 13. After reviewing the results of the outcome, the process, and the disruptor, then there's kind of a lesson learned. And you can pretty much put anything you want on here. This is highly flexible, and we want to hear anything about the PDSA process that you think is important for others to know. And by others, I don't just mean our group again. Again, we've been sharing this widely. So there are other people looking over our shoulder, trying to learn from us. So any lessons learned here that you think would benefit those that come after, this is the place to put it. And this is another slide that is often requires more than one. So, or a section that requires more than one slide. So don't worry about that. If it needs 2 or 3 slides, that's fine. You'll end with an action slide, and we just want to know, okay, having gone through this process for the last 5 months, is this a change that's going to stick? Are you going to continue to adopt this practice? Will you maybe adapt it somehow? There are a couple of things you like in general, the outcomes that you saw, but you think it could be improved. What will you do differently this next go around with that change idea? Or did it completely fall flat and it needs to be abandoned and we're ready to move on to something new? This is the slide where you tell us your action decision. In the template that I send around, we've always included the general guidance on developing a SMART aim. It might not hurt to look at your SMART aim, make sure that these 5 steps are all represented. And then we give you an example of a specific SMART aim along with a change theory diagram for that. So as you're putting those together, if you want a refresher, that'll be at the tail end of the presentation, but these are just support materials. So just know that when you send us your final slide deck, you can leave these in here, that's fine, but we don't expect you to say anything about those. Okay, I think I saw some chat stuff coming through. How do I get to that? Here we go.
Yeah, people were just saying they were coming in and out of the chat or had to go to other meetings, that's all.
Thank you. Okay, any questions on the slide template for the final presentations? Or any questions about how the final presentations work? For those in Creox and Frontline, I don't think you guys have had to do one of these yet, but you sat through them perhaps at the last learning session. Our entire morning session will be devoted to review of these slide decks. And we do also record that. So we also have the recording that we can refer back to and refer others to. Again, it's just further documentation of the lessons that were learned. But you'll get about 20 minutes, and we'd like 15 of that to be devoted to the slides, and then 5 minutes or so for some Q&A with the entire collaborative. Oh, the other reason to record that is because obviously we're splitting you up. So we will make those links available so that if you're an Oklahoma County program and you'd like to see what programs in Tulsa did, you'll have that opportunity.
David, it's Yolanda again. The educators have to be also in the learning collaborative, right?
Yeah, we sure encourage them to be there, just like the National Coin Network does. I think it's a great chance for them to hear and accept some praise for the work that they've done over the last 5 months, and then also learn some lessons from the others. In the afternoon session, you'll be developing your 3rd and final PDSA on the father engagement topic. So as always, the more the merrier. We'd love for them to be involved in that process to help guide the direction your program is going to go for that final phase.
Dr. Barber, you still don't have that date, right? For next year?
I believe that is correct. I think we've settled on late January. I'm looking at my video to see if I'm getting head nods from Lisa.
Yeah, we have not finalized the date yet. Lisa will be sending out doodle polls for those dates in the next few days.
So the phone calls prior to that will be at the beginning of January, I'm imagining.
We'll start right after the holiday break and try to book as many of you that are back and available that week. And then that'll probably spill into the second or 3rd week even of January. And then the following week, one of those last weeks of January, we'll do the learning session.
Okay.
I had a question, Dr. Lord.
Yes.
So by January, then would you modify the process measures and the structures that you guys are collecting, or like in terms of changes in the touch points, would there be anything needed around that or after that?
Yeah, so we'll develop our final PDSA on this particular topic, and then we'll immediately begin working with you and Nira and on any changes that need to be made to ETO. So that'll be, that'll probably occupy my team, your team, for a good portion of February.
Okay.
We'll try to have all that resolved by 3rd or even the 4th week of February, and then dashboards will start coming out in March.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
I think I said June earlier. We pushed back that final learning session on father engagement and what will be the first learning session of developmental promotion and monitoring. It'll be in July. So you'll have from February through June to collect data on this final father engagement PDSA. We'll get together probably mid-July to review those results. And then in that afternoon session, we'll move on to develop PDSAs on developmental promotion and monitoring. We will spend, because that's going to be a jam-packed session, we will spend more time than usual on the monthly calls leading up to that learning session on the new topic, just so that we get a chance to seed some ideas to you. You get a chance to see the key drivers diagram, for example, for that new learning session, and some advanced warning to be thinking about the change idea you want to implement as we transition away from father engagement and on to developmental promotion and monitoring. Looks like Clay Thompson tore his Achilles, if you can see that on my screen. I'm not sure how that happens, but for the basketball fans in the audience.
Big fan. I'm from the Warriors area.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
The heartbreaker. Any other questions about the final template, presentations, learning session from anyone? All right.
I'll stop sharing.
Okay. And then we will switch over. Let me pull up the next piece. I put it in PowerPoint. It's not formal. It's mostly just so that what we can do afterwards is I'll have Lisa send around the links to the material that I'll be kind of just pointing your attention to today. So as we were preparing for this call today, I started thinking about everything that's been going on and all the challenges that both the providers and the families are facing. Especially, I feel like the last few weeks, there have been a lot of shifts in what families are dealing with, and that's probably nationally and also locally, given the challenges of COVID and ice storms and elections and everything that's been going on. So I thought it might be helpful to just have an informal discussion about some of the resources and information that might be helpful, both to pass around to parents in your programs, but also, related to kind of helping support providers as well as they navigate their jobs and being parents for those who are. And as many of you probably know, my background is in developmental psychology. So my PhD at UC Irvine was focused really on child development and how to promote healthy development in children. I've of course focused on kind of when things go wrong a little bit and focused on a lot on children who've been exposed to adversity, but really the overarching goal is to try to help kids and have them develop in healthy, adaptive ways so that they can function well across the lifespan. And so these are some resources that actually got put together when I was at UNC Chapel Hill before coming here. And I just thought I'd bring your attention to them, talk through them, and any questions that people have, we can discuss and kind of go from there. Let's see, it's not wanting, there we go. So when the pandemic first started, the lab where I was working, the research lab, is focused on children who've been exposed to adversity. And we put together kind of some strategies to highlight to parents about ways to help their kids through the pandemic. And I think this was really kind of important and relevant when the pandemic first started and has kind of come back into importance as it's become increasingly clear that this is lasting longer than anyone had anticipated. And changes keep occurring in children's lives. So kids are going back to school, then they're going back to virtual, parents going to work, then losing jobs and finding new jobs. So there's been a lot of change occurring for families. So In terms of strategies to highlight with families a need for structure, that's probably the biggest challenge right now, as it's constantly a moving target in terms of what's going on in people's lives. So really simple attempts at trying to create structure and routine for children is incredibly helpful. Something as simple as waking up and going to bed at the same time every day is incredibly helpful for helping kids function and develop and achieve what they need to. School day schedules, this is a constant moving target as well right now, but trying within whatever model is being used with families to have that schedule be consistent. So if it's at home, having a consistent schedule of this is when we get up, this is what we do before school, this is when the school hours kind of are, and here's what we do afterwards. Another key thing that I think gets overlooked a lot is exercise. Kids actually exercise and are very active when they're at school. They have outside recess, they have PE, they're coming and going from various activities in the classroom, and that gets reduced a lot when they're at home. And that's true also for infants and toddlers who aren't in school yet. Their lives are more restrictive than they used to be because they're not going out and they're not being exposed to as much as they normally are. So finding ways to build in some kind of physical activity throughout the day can really help kids be able to regulate better and regulate their behavior, regulate their emotions better if they simply get physical energy out. And then social contact, whatever this means. I know that families are different in how they are enforcing social distancing. So trying to think of ways that are safe and sensitive to other people's kind of levels of risk and ways to get social contact, but trying to build those experiences in. And in each of these slides, there are hyperlinks to a lot more detail. So different sources of information, different tip sheets for parents. So you're welcome to kind of go through those. There are also strategies around motivating children to learn. I'm not going to go. David says another example is consistent practice of piano at 1 o'clock each afternoon. Yes, that would be in my house. My 8-year-old, it's her birthday, so she's currently demonstrating her piano skills to her grandparents on FaceTime. So she's getting exercise and social contact at the same time. So, you know, win-win for her, and cognitive stimulation from the piano. So, and then in terms of motivating for children to learn at home, this one's really hard. For all of us who are at home trying to motivate our kids to continue to be engaged in school from a remote distance, it is increasingly challenging to make this happen. Strategies that are known to help and at least provide some support are things around giving kids choices. So even something as simple as if they have a whole list of activities that they have to complete for the day, letting them pick which one they do first, letting them pick which one they do last. Just those simple, tiny choices reduce the power struggles and give them a sense that they have some control. I think that is one of the hardest things that kids are experiencing right now, is that they feel like they have no control over what's going on in the world right now. And kids feel that in general because most of their lives are guided by adults. But right now it's been so reduced down to such little control. And so giving them those moments where they can say, I would like to do my Seesaw activity or my IXL activity or whatever the different apps and structure that they have to do, that gives them that freedom to feel like they have some voice in what's going on. Highlighting successes and progress. So it's probably easy to focus on when things don't go right when you're doing homeschool, but giving them a lot of praise and reward around just simple things, showing them what they're learning and how they've progressed since you've started doing a certain lesson with them is huge. And related to that, small rewards for particularly challenging assignments and subjects. And these are not monetary awards, they're not food rewards. It's more things like, you know, if you get through this subject. Let's say math is something that they really struggle with. If you get through this math assignment, we'll take a small break and you and I can do a special activity one-on-one. Or if that's not feasible because you have other commitments, then it's maybe they get a break to go outside, or they get a break to call a friend and say hi, something simple, but what helps them kind of move forward with the day. And then flexibility. You know, there are times when it just doesn't make sense to push a lesson or an assignment. And so having the flexibility to say, hey, let's walk away, let's move on to this, or let's take a break. Whatever flexibility people can build into their lives, the better, I think, right now. And then creating times for play, especially for the age range of children that are kind of the focus of home visiting. Play is just as much learning as anything else. So even if it's not formal learning, they gain so much by being able to play. And if mom and dad can play with them, great. If not, then at least giving them the opportunity to play, they're going to gain a lot from that. And there's some sources down here from the American Psychological Association and Brightly that give more tips and strategies that might be helpful. Balancing work and parenting. I don't think anybody might feel that they're winning at this right now. Clearly, I'm going through that right now myself. I know a lot of you are as well. Here's some strategies that were recommended by different organizations that do a lot of work and research on parenting. And so they try to gauge it by age. I highlighted the ones that make sense for the families that you're going to be working with. So for infants, if it's possible, wear the infant while you work. If you work from home and you can stand up and create kind of a standing station so you have strapped to you and can kind of move and walk, that will help tremendously in terms of keeping the baby calm and regulated, and at the same time maybe give you a chance to not be physically holding the child or having to put the child down all the time. And then of course taking play breaks to just have quick moments with the child, which can, I know, be incredibly challenging. Toddlers, PlayStations just refers to giving them several activities, but have them be isolated one at a time. So if there's a little station where they can play blocks, another little station where they have maybe some stuffed animals to play with, another station where they can do some kind of small art activity, just kind of moving them from one thing to the next helps them stay engaged so that you can get work done while you need to. And then parallel play and work. Toddlers like to play with other children, but they don't actually play with them. They play in parallel. So they want to be physically close to another child, but that doesn't mean that they actually want to play with the other child. That same thing is true for when they're interacting with you. So even something as simple as setting up kind of a PlayStation for your child and then you working right next to them, it gives them that sense of we're doing this parallel play. Sometimes that's successful. Sometimes they start crawling all over your laptop or trying to draw on whatever you're working on. So for what that's worth, that is a strategy that sometimes can be helpful for getting kids to kind of calmly play while you try to get at least short bursts of work done. And then the school age children, the advice remains the same, creating schedules, giving choices. There are a few different sites about positive discipline strategies. So these were things that might be helpful to talk to families about. It is really hard and it is really stressful to get through a pandemic, as I think we're all realizing. And parenting strategies sometimes take a hit when we're stressed and we don't always do our best and we don't always parent the way we know we probably should or could if we weren't stressed out. So just trying to come up with strategies that are helpful and can maybe reduce the stress for parents. So, you know, these are true at any time. Redirecting unwanted behavior, trying to focus and direct your attention to the behaviors you do want your child to have. Using rewards and privileges, again, trying to focus the rewards on quality time spent together or things that are stimulating and meaningful for the child, not monetary or, you know, food related. And knowing when not to respond. I think this is a huge one for children and parents alike. So one of the things that I've been doing since I've been here at OUHSC is I've still been conducting some research at UNC where we are assessing every single week families during the pandemic. And we're asking them about how they're doing, how their kids are doing, their mental health, their child's mental health, and how they're doing emotionally. And the number one thing that we keep finding, because it's been about 30 weeks now. And so we've been looking at some of the results and seeing week in and week out what's predicting how parents are doing and what's predicting how kids are doing. And one of the number one predictors we keep finding for children is how their parents respond emotionally. So when their parents are particularly reactive emotionally, when they're blowing up, when they are unregulated, when they are having a hard time kind of keeping their emotions in check, that is the number one predictor for children having difficulties during the pandemic. So knowing when not to respond, knowing when you are not in the emotional state to deal with something and kind of just taking a step back is really helpful. So just kind of keeping that in mind. There are times when we all need to kind of take a step back and not respond because it's not going to be helpful. And then they also recommend using timeouts. I know various programs and various kind of models have different opinions about timeouts and whether to use them. Other people refer to it more as taking space. So just kind of that idea of you need a moment, or the child needs a moment to just recenter themselves and get back to baseline before re-engaging. Here are a whole bunch of other resources. I just mostly wanted people to have these resources for whatever it's worth, whether it's helpful for you, whether it's helpful for your families. There are tip sheets in Spanish around parenting as well. I wanted to make sure that we had materials and languages for the different programs. There are links to kind of exercise activities, movement breaks, kid exercise videos. The kid exercise videos actually came directly from me. Those are tried and true. There's a nice cardio one that my kids really like. And there's a Cosmic Kids whole series of yoga videos that whenever the weather's bad, we just do those instead of going outside. So during the ice storm, we did a lot of those videos. And then at-home learning tips for children with ADHD. There are stress management tips, behavioral management videos. And then there are some resources specifically from Prevent Child Abuse America and from sources on intimate partner violence during COVID. So really honing in on some of the stuff that your families might be experiencing and just some resource tips and some strategies and things to think about. And then finally, there are some educational and parenting apps. So I just wanted to kind of put those out there. These kind of build off of what I'll be kind of segueing into next, which is helping parents in the moment with reminding them about strategies, helping them engage with their children in healthy ways. So PBS Kids is just a child educational app, but there are a couple other apps here that are geared towards teaching parents and educating parents around ways to promote healthy development in their children. So Vroom, the brain builder, is one of those. And it specifically tries to give parents little tips and tricks throughout the day to think about different ways that they can engage with their child, ways to, encourage them to read to the child, tell stories, do make-believe play, things like that. And they're just quick, short kind of parenting strategies that the app provides. Caribou is a reading app that's actually, yes, we will send you the PowerPoint, absolutely. We want to make sure you have all these links. Caribou is a video reading app. I think I mentioned it on one of the calls before. Essentially what it does is it was built to be interactive with grandparents, but it can be used for any family members that aren't physically present. So I thought, even for maybe father figures who don't live in the home with the child, it could be a helpful strategy. It allows you to pick a book and then it shows the book on both your screen and the child's screen. You each download the app and then you can read to the child or have the child read to you or have it read out loud and you both listen. And it has a whole range of different types of books at different reading levels, different languages. It's a free app. And then I also wanted to point your attention to an app that is being used by the Nurse Family Partnership model. And so they have this Goal Mama app. And it is similar to kind of the Vroom app, where it's based on trying to provide parenting strategies, parenting tips, trying to take what they're being taught and educated about in their home visits and have it be more of a daily reminder and kind of cue about really embedding the curriculum into everyday life. And so they've got some information on their website about specifically what they do, how the app works, and how they're trying to take the modules and the training that they do and have it be an in the moment daily reminder for parents so that they can really embed what they're learning. And then that leads us to a quick overview of a study that David and I are putting together. So this is, it's the mHealth app. This is an app that has been created by some researchers at OUHSC, actually through there's a cancer center here on campus, and they've done some work. It was originally created for smoking cessation, but it's been broadened out into other domains. And what we're hoping to do is first start with a pilot study. So we're hoping to get kind of some preliminary data with families starting June. So as we transition into the next learning focus around parental monitoring and development, and really trying to help parents understand what milestones their children should be reaching, when they should be reaching them, and how to help promote their children's development, we're going to hopefully be able to start doing this pilot study. And the idea is this app allows you to do a number of things. One of the things that we would like to do is provide daily reminders to parents about strategies that they can use with their kids. So what we're thinking of doing is basically a few times a day, maybe 2-3 times a day, families would receive this kind of ping where they'd receive some information and it would have a parenting tip. And we're planning to time it so it's around times that we know are hard and challenging for families. And we also know are times when parents are going to be with their children. So mornings as you're getting ready for work and school, evenings as you're getting done with work and school, bedtime. These are times that tend to elicit higher levels of stress in parents, and are also times that parents tend to be around their children. So we wanted to guide those tips for those moments and provide some tips about, one, kind of stress management, helpful parenting techniques, but also encouraging parents to use some of the strategies that we're hoping that they use to promote child development. So tips around reading to their children, or conversations they could have at the dinner table, ways in which to teach their children about colors while getting dressed in the morning, things like that. So it's really kind of helping with that promotion of healthy development by giving these tips in a daily, in the moment way, rather than just periodically they're going to be receiving it as they're having to do these tasks. So hopefully really reinforcing some of the lessons that they're learning through home visiting. And then also, in addition to providing tips to parents, we'd also like to collect data from them about what's going on in the day. So right now we're planning for around 2 times a day. We would ask them to complete a very brief survey. I mean, we're talking a matter of seconds to minutes as they kind of get used to completing the survey as they do it more. And it would ask questions about just, where are they, who are they with, a few questions about their mood and emotions, a few questions about interactions they've had with their child in the past hour, 2 hours, so that we can get at whether these tips in the moment are helping with parenting and mood and stress, and seeing how that unfolds across multiple days. So we would have them essentially do that every day for 14 days. And then we'd take a break for a few weeks and then maybe start it up again a few weeks after that. And so there'd be kind of 3 waves of data collection with breaks in between so that they didn't get burnt out from answering the questions. So that's kind of generally what we're thinking about. And we're in the process of putting that study together and getting everything organized. And again, the idea is to start perhaps in June or early July as we switch into the new CQI PDSA period. So that's a lot of information. I would be happy to take questions about the study, about the parenting tips, and also just kind of open it up for discussion if anyone has anything they want to add.
Yeah, and Helen, if I may, any advice you have to us as we're thinking about how to either design the study or design the app that you think would be helpful for us to know, highly appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
This is Yolanda. We have done, I think, like 2 different meetings, group connections. As a matter of fact, today was the second one with stress, how to relieve stress. And today was like dance to the music. But very early in the pandemic, families were, that was one of the things that the families were feeling very stressed because that was very new for them. So we based, I think, our first group connections during the pandemic about stress. And I was trying, when you were doing the presentation, I was trying to find a document that I have, and I don't have it right now. I don't know what I did with it, but it was routines versus a schedule. And that was very good because, I mean, when you have a schedule, you have the time frame, but the routines was a different, how work with the children in the routines. And if I know that I have it in English and in Spanish, if I find it, I will send an email to you guys.
That would be great. Yeah, that's a really nice distinction. And I think sometimes where parents get tripped up and stuck a little bit around routines versus schedules. I think we feel like, I know when the pandemic started, I mean, on Pinterest and Facebook and all the social media, you saw all those parents with their like clearly color-coded calendars and everything they were going to do for the day. And that puts a lot of pressure on a parent. And it also puts a lot of pressure on a child. So trying to work within a routine of, this is a consistent kind of pattern of what we're going to do each day, but there's flexibility built in. It's not a strict at 9 a.m. you're going to get up, at 9:05 you're going to brush your teeth, but more here's kind of the general unfolding of what the day should look like so that the kids have predictability and consistency without rigidity is kind of the overall goal.
One thing just to consider when you're doing that data collection, that is going to be in your MHealth app that you're thinking of, it's going to be twice per day for 14 days. And I heard you saying that maybe some questions about this. So they were also making it really short. Mm-hmm. And the questions, not that has, I don't know, double negatives or, certain wording that sometimes the families, it's hard for them to understand. Mm-hmm. And I know that we have done some pre and post tests, and I know that if we were not there just to explain, what that question meant, they would have not known. So if they're going to be on their own, yeah, I don't know, just to be very straightforward with, like specifically like you were saying, where they were at, what they were playing, maybe something that is very simple. But if it's going to be something with, I don't know, questions with double negatives, for some reason our families don't understand those, or if they're too complex, just to be very simple in what you're thinking of that data collection.
That's a really good point and very true. And one of the things that we would do to start is to introduce the app and the questions to the family. And I mean, it might have to be virtually, but to walk them through the questions, walk them through what's expected, walk them through the app, get all that organized and clear for them before we actually do any data collection, just to make sure that they understand what's being asked of them. So that's one strategy that we use, because you're absolutely right, especially when you're trying to do data collection away from the actual person completing the measure, it can be very difficult. So we will definitely think about that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other thoughts or questions or feedback?
Yeah, thanks, Helen. This is amazing. Like to be able to identify structure when there's actually no structure at the moment. And I see like the need of giving control to the kids when like they're literally like, we just want to pass beyond this pandemic. We can't do anything. That activity we can't do. That activity we cannot do anymore. They know the fact that they're losing control. They're not comprehending what does this mean to be in life like this. One of the strategies we tried was to invite their grandparents over to stay with us for some like weeks, literally. And I've actually seen improvement. Kids were like complaining of being bored despite about all the activities I was trying to incorporate, but that has been very helpful. They see people around, they interact, and I think it's very helpful for the pandemic quarantine mode to have extra people in the home who love kids, and then it's helping for their development, I think. If somebody could have that done for like spans of weeks or days and then just live by themselves and have some people over, considering their safety, of course, that would be helpful.
Yeah, it's such a unique experience for children to be this isolated. And I mean, it's gone in waves because and it depends on families. I mean, living here in Oklahoma, definitely there are a lot of families who don't necessarily stay indoors and stay isolated. And then there are other families who haven't really left their house since this whole thing started. And no matter what you choose, if your school doesn't go back and you're at home, or if your work is at home, there's a lot more just family time where you're isolated one-on-one with your just kind of nuclear family. So yeah, building in different ways of trying to get interaction. One strategy that my kids have used, because we moved across the country during the pandemic, so all of their friendships got taken away. So they do virtual sleepovers where they call their friends in North Carolina via FaceTime, and they get ready. They watch a movie or a video together. They like put the same thing up on Netflix. They watch it at the same time. Then they like brush their teeth and eat dinner together, things like that. And then they call each other in the morning when they wake up and eat breakfast together and things like that. So they kind of have that structure of a sleepover without actually having one. So there are lots of creative ways people have come up with to engage. I was very impressed at Halloween with some of the strategies people came up with to try to still engage in some normal-ish interactions given the challenges. But yeah, there are for families that can kind of isolate together, that's a great way of doing it. For families that can't, if they're separated by distance or based on risk, there are things like the Caribou app and technology that's great. And there are just other ways, even sending old-fashioned letters. All of my kids have had pen pals since we moved from North Carolina, and they write their friends, they write family members, which actually is a great way to also get them to do schoolwork, because then they're working on their handwriting and spelling and learning addresses, which they never knew their address until we started writing physical letters. So just kind of coming up with creative ways. So I just wanted to kind of put this out there as some tips and strategies and resources. I know that it's a lot that everyone's going through. I will have Lisa send all of this out so you can look at all the hyperlinks. Any other, I know we're getting close to time. Any other thoughts or feedback that people want to share? Okay. Well, in terms of what's coming up next, you'll be receiving emails about setting up the January learning sessions. We'll also set up the calls, the prep calls for the January learning session for each of the programs. So every single program will receive that. We will also, Lisa, I don't think have we scheduled the December call? Did that get finalized yet?
Not yet. I was waiting for a few more people to vote, but I'm going to do it this afternoon or it is already afternoon, but yeah.
Perfect. So that will go out as well. So we'll get the December call scheduled, and that one maybe a little bit shorter. We'll kind of go over some of this prep for January, and potentially have another presentation. So we'll go through that, and I think that pretty much covers it. Any questions before we finish up? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today, and we'll talk to you again next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.